Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the ranking member bringing up the Animas La Plata project. And Mr. Galbadon, when that project was built, that's probably one of the last, or it was stated to be one of the last big projects to be built. Wasn't that fulfilling the commitment that we had made to fulfill Indian water rights in the state of Colorado?
Yes, it was. It was a settlement agreement.
To be able to do that, wasn't that project downsized?
It was downsized.
Significantly to Animas La Plata Light.
Yes.
In your estimation for Animas La Plata, the McPhee project over in Montezuma County, being able to store that water, wasn't that beneficial in terms of some of the commentary that we've heard in regards to the Endangered Species Acts to be able to actually maintain river flows?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of the plumbing in my head. I'm not sure how that would have affected the river flows, so I would have to answer that question for the record.
Some of the releases, I live there. That's actually been the case in terms of what we've been able to see. I am a little curious, Mr. Galbadon, in regards to the Bureau of Rec had partnered with CSU, Colorado State University, spending $229,000. And the objective of the study was to provide information to our state agencies and water users about the potential of agricultural water transfers to address increasing urban needs. I'm just curious, it seems to me that's common sense. We saw Denver growing, as Mr. O'Toole noted. Why were you spending money on such a study?
I'm not familiar with that study. Again, I will have to answer that one for the record. We often spend money just to study, to look at what the best alternatives are in some situations. That's probably the case here, but like I said, I'll have to get that.
Okay. And would it be a reasonable, and Mr. O'Toole, you might want to jump in on this as well. 1950, 1960, the U.S. Census noted that we had 130 million Americans. Mr. O'Toole had spoken to the need to have increased agricultural production to the tune of 70% to meet the growing worldwide population. But just in our country, we've grown from 130 million Americans to better than 300 million Americans right now. Every one of them probably wants to take a bath or going to need one. And we're going to have be able to have water to be able to grow those crops. Wouldn't it be a sensible solution when we have, as the chairman had noted, great snowpack years in California like we had last year and even in Colorado, to be able to store more of that water to just be able to plan for the future?
Absolutely. It would be fantastic if we could do that. As I stated earlier, we would need congressional authorization to build those projects, to raise dams, et cetera. So, and I stated earlier, I'm an engineer. I've built dams, so I more than would like to see more of those.
Great. You're an engineer, and you build things. You want to be able to make them work. Do you see ways to be able to streamline this process? Because we heard a variety of testimony that was going on in terms of redundant regulations, roadblocks that are being put up, increasing costs. I have a great concern in my district for our farm and ranch community, for senior citizens on fixed incomes. We're unnecessarily increasing water costs, which becomes a backdoor tax increase on struggling Americans that are trying to be able to provide for their families. Do you have some recommendations on how we can streamline this process?
There's the processes are founded in law, founded in regulations. It's been mentioned already, the Endangered Species Act, the Clean Water Act, NEPA, et cetera. Those are the law. That is the law of the land. We need to comply with them just as...
But as you noted, there are regulations in there that can certainly be addressed from administrative level. So, Mr. O'Toole, would you like to jump in on this?
Yes, sir. Let me say, in the last month, I took a trip through the Navajo Nation from Cortez, Colorado, down through into Arizona, and have met with the head of farming for the Navajo Nation. They have now the capability to go from 70,000 to 110,000 acres of irrigated land. It's all infrastructure. And I think a hearing like this is so important to understand that we have to make a recommitment to that commitment we made generations ago. It is important to have rural infrastructure. The light, the Animas La Plata light that you referred to, sir, that would have had the ability to expand many acres in Colorado if the original vision had been completed. And I think we went through a period where we kidded ourselves that we could live without infrastructure. We can't. The Platte River dams were built during the Roosevelt administration, not Franklin. They're 100 years old. The infrastructure has to be dealt with, and we have to have new storage to be able to complete our vision. And the numbers in this think tank thing that I've been asked to participate in went from, in the year that I've been there, from 9.2 to 9.6 billion.
I'm sorry, Mr. O'Toole, I'm going to have to cut you off. The time has expired.
Could you maybe speak to the importance a little bit in terms of recreation and water storage?
Recreation? What? Recreation?
Yeah, how many people recreate from reclamation facilities in Colorado each year? Do you have any?
I don't know in Colorado. Certainly, you build a reservoir, you build a dam, you have a reservoir, you're going to have ample opportunities for recreation, from boating to fishing to.
So it's positive, and that is part of reclamation's core mission as well. And I'm going to go back to a question I'd asked earlier, just as point of clarification. Does the Bureau of Reclamation Facilities, do those help stabilize water flows to be able to make rafting possible?
Yes, we're not in the business of releasing water for rafting.
Specifically for that, but it does help stabilize it during the season, which
it would.
Probably also helps endangered species for in-stream flows and those sorts of things as well.
Yes.
Great. You know, one thing I would like to be able to speak to, and Representative Napolitano and I visited on this a little bit when it comes to some of the fracking issues. When you get into Colorado, at least, you have to be able to own your water. We have a priority-based system that is regulated by the state. It's not a free-flow, free grab that actually exists in that. So that ought to give you a little bit of comfort, I think. And Mr. O'Toole, I would like you to maybe address something that I think is critical. When we're talking about conservation for water, are you seeing it in the farm and ranch community that they're making efforts to actually conserve and make highest and best use of the water that they have available?
Well, when our community is still looking at some other storage, and we integrate, as I said, we created a 25-mile fishery hatching for upper Colorado endangered fish in the reservoir we did build. Those are integrated into our long-term. I would tell you that in a relationship I have on migratory birds with a committee that works on those, it's interesting to know the highest bird count since 1955 is now, and when you dig down on why, it's because of irrigated agriculture, and whether it be the Central Valley or Klamath or the Rice north of San Francisco, it's an integrated process, and our bountiful wildlife populations have an awful lot to do with agriculture.
Now, and is it your observation that our farmers and ranchers are trying to get the highest, best use out of their water as well, using some different practices in irrigation?
Well, in our family's ranch, we integrated our irrigation and our fishery. We have a fishery that my daughter manages. It's another income source. We've created an important bird area in our riparian area, which is, I can tell you that with elder birder hostiles, don't get in front of them when they see a new bird. But there's all kinds of opportunities to integrate what we all know, and that's the most valuable resource is water. And if done right, it's a multiplicity of opportunities.
Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would just like to hear your opinion. And Colorado and probably elsewhere, there's an old saying that money doesn't follow water, water follows money. And that lends itself to your comment that we're seeing more water being directed into urban areas. When I look in my district right now, Los Animas County, Otero County, we've literally seen areas dried up in terms of farms that are going to have to be able to produce the food to be able to feed the people that choose to live in those cities. Would it be a fair representation of your views that in order to be able to create a win-win, to be able to feed the people, to be able to grow the cities, that it is in our best interest to be able to store more water?
The one example I'd say quickly is South Park that transferred its water to the urban areas in the eastern slope in 1998. Storage would have been much preferable to that just transfer, and I think we reduce our viability by not looking at the whole picture, and for a couple of decades we haven't looked at the whole picture. I think that's why this hearing, I think, is so important. we're going to expand our opportunities to look at a variety of ways to do all the things that we think are valuable.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your comments, and I noted you'd said it's been years since we've had a debate, the debate that's beginning here today. And, Mr. Chairman, I again want to applaud you for holding this hearing. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you.